Well, hello and welcome everyone to this Friday, the 13th educational webinar here at RightCapital Financial Planning Software. My name is Daniel Gregoire. I'm the training manager and customer relationship manager here, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you all about one of our favorite new tools that came about just a few months back, which is, of course, our Blueprint module. And one of my favorite things about the Blueprint module at RightCapital is that this is a feature that can not only be used within a report and within a planning presentation, but it can also be really well leveraged within the actual information gathering stage or the data entry phase as well for financial plans. So I'm excited to talk about this area today because it's one that not only is pretty new, like I said, but it's had a lot of recent updates to it. So those of you who maybe took a good look at it when it first came out, you're going to see today that there's a fair amount of enhancements that we've made, which are, as always, tied to the wonderful feedback that all of you provide to us. So on that note, if there's things that you'd like to see moving forward, if you have questions about this tool that we can get into further for you, please do not hesitate to use the GoToWebinar control panel and ask me questions directly. I'm going to spend about 25 to 30 minutes on the content today, and then we're going to dive in, as always, to as many questions as all of you have. So we really like to make sure that you can all confidently use these tools. And so that's going to be my goal, is to answer as many questions after the content. So stick around if you can, but we welcome you on this, what's a kind of a rainy Friday here in the Northeast, but we appreciate you joining us from across the country. Now, as we just quickly talk through our points today, we first just want to kind of demonstrate the blueprint and how it can be customized. This is going to be an area that's very versatile, and we can really think about this as a visualization of the data entry itself that is exceptionally client friendly. This is a great way to review your client's current plan. And when we're talking about the blueprint, that's really what we are talking about. We're talking about the data entry itself that creates the cash flow details within the client's current trajectory of their life or their current plan. It's the other areas of the tool, like the Monte Carlo simulation, that we talk about building proposals, but we'll talk all about that. And so the blueprint really just takes those 6 initial steps of data entry that many of you are familiar with, and it creates a visualization that's much easier for the clients to connect with and see all in one place. That kind of gives a little more than just the balance sheet maybe would, and also provides a little more of a client-friendly view than maybe the cash flow reports provide. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about customization, how to dial it in perfectly for each client. And then, what we really also want to do is just kind of walk through how you might use the blueprint instead of the 6 initial steps to create a financial plan. So you can actually bypass those 6 initial steps of data entry and just sit down maybe with the client, having, let's say, the blueprint up on the screen, and you can just start entering their data in a way that, again, allows them to really connect with that visual. And again, makes it really easy to see if maybe certain components are missing, or certain areas are absent. So we'll go through all of that, but then I want to talk about reporting, because Blueprint is a great area to generate as a quick PDF output. It's a great way to summarize the actual client's information within their current plan, as opposed to mapping out each of the 6 initial steps within the PDF report. Again, consolidation is always good. Less is more sometimes with that. So we want to talk about that, how you can pick and choose what you want generated on the report, and then how all that interacts with maybe a quick example of customizing a client portal to maybe provide a really streamlined experience for them that's very intuitive to navigate. So that's it. And then we're going to dive into all the great questions that you inevitably have through our system. So we're always here to help you. And if we're beyond the webinar, please know that there is going to be an opportunity to, talk through this information as well on the, on the live chat, as well as you can catch a recording of this on replay as well. So what I'll do now is simply transfer over to RightCapital software, and we'll start diving into some of this information together. So what I want to do is just open up my advisor portal here to RightCapital, and I'll get this zoomed in. I had a couple notes here on the audio. Hopefully you can all hear me okay, but we are happy to make adjustments if needed. But we do want to just remind everyone that the blueprint module itself is really an integral part of the data entry in a financial plan, meaning it's going to live in what we call the profile tab. So if I were to access a client, maybe like Bruce and Betty here, and open their financial plan, what I'm going to see is that that blueprint module itself is going to live within the profile tab at the far right side of the screen, which is fully customizable. Of course, we know that the blueprint itself is something that can be moved around if we want to, and we'll get into that later. But the profile tab is the foundational details that create the 6 initial steps of data entry within every financial plan, starting with who's in that household, what kind of income does that household make, what type of savings does that client make on an annual basis to their invested assets, what do their invested assets look like as it relates to their balance sheet today, and then what are the expenses and goals for trying to fund. So this just represents those 6 initial steps that RightCapital uses to project that client data 30, 40, 50 years into the future. So it all starts though with that net worth, which is essentially the client's balance sheet built out today with different accounts, with different properties, liabilities, insurance policies, and other things. But this is again that starting place. We can think about the net worth as day 1 of the financial plan, which then gets mapped into the future with what's the income and expenses and savings look like each year, as well as who's in the family for tax purposes and what goals are we trying to fund. But these 6 steps are disconnected in a way, in that we're looking at these within the frame of these data cards. We are not really seeing a continuum of time, let's say, of when the goals are occurring or when different aspects of the client's life are popping up. And that's why RightCapital has done work to create this blueprint module. So under the profile subtab, blueprint is where we're going to find all this really great data that maps directly from those 6 initial steps. And the blueprint, again, is going to provide all of that information in a much more client-friendly view. So we'll just talk about this quickly as it relates to this, because I think it's always important to be able to look through these plans, understand how they're going to be different from client to client. But we have an easy key here on the upper right that tells us what do the bank accounts look like in terms of color coding, what do the investment accounts look like, what do stock plans, properties or other assets look like, what do credit cards and loans look like in red versus insurance policies in blue. And of course, we're going to be coded to either being owned by the client or by the co-client or jointly held. So what's great about this is a fully customizable view for the client's net worth. So everything entered in step 4 of the initial data entry or in the net worth immediately transports here, and vice versa. So I can go in, for example, click on the data entry for the primary home. I could make changes here. I could, add information here. But if I change this to 700,000, for example, within the blueprint, after clicking on that and seeing this drawer come out with all the info that we have associated with that particular primary home, I can save that. And what I'll see is that $700,000 value transfers directly over to the actual net worth itself, where we now see that primary home value increased to 700,000. So it's all connected here. Everything we do in the blueprint transfers to the data entry of the client's current plan. Everything we do in the data entry, those 6 initial steps, also transfers back to the blueprint itself. And again, as a reminder, the data entry under the profile tab creates the current plan, which is the plan that we're measuring against within the system. Now, beyond that, we can also fully customize these views. We can reorder all the data as needed. So I can for example, maybe have that taxable account come first or the bank account come first. I can switch around the different credit card debts or the term policies to show different information. And this is again just helpful for that layout purpose. But beyond just being able to kind of edit the data here, we can also add any information. So this might be a really good place for you and the clients to review, let's say, the client's information that's been entered. And maybe they realize, oh, we forgot to, let's say, add that additional credit card that they've taken out to maybe have a recent large purchase. So maybe again, they have, the need to add another data point. Maybe it's another credit card that's in there. So we can hit, add edit there if we need to. I can enter, the new card. Let's just call this the, the Target card. And so this is going to be what we're going to put in here for maybe $4,000, right? And then this data is again entered. We'd see the APR. Maybe this is 15%, maybe it's more. The minimum payment, the monthly payment, anything we need to enter here. So all this data again then transfers into the plan itself and will appear not only here under the data entry, under profile blueprint, but also under the net worth. Now, one thing that comes up a lot is, can we, hide potentially accounts or exclude things from this? Well, that's where we're going to be able to use this edit button. So this is really helpful. We know that there might be accounts that maybe, as you saw, were excluded from that particular area under the net worth. So maybe there's a stock plan account that we maybe don't have all the data on yet. Maybe we started to fill this out, but we're not quite ready to include it within the reports yet. So this is something that I can actually choose to include or exclude based on the information that's here. So again, I can uncheck that, for example, as I click edit, which lists all the information here. I can hit save, and this will again allow me to customize the visual that's here, and we see that stock plan is no longer listed. So it's just a very friendly visual. It's a very easy place for clients to see information, and the net worth is almost just a representation of that balance sheet with a little more color, a little more kind of straightforward details. And the last thing I'll mention is if we are adding things like trusts, those are going to appear at the very bottom. So maybe I'm going to be adding, for example, an investment account. Maybe I'm adding a trust account, for example. Maybe it's let's call it a charitable remainder trust or a CRT. So I can add that information in. I can put all the relevant details for that trust, but those are just going to appear again in a slightly different location. So as I enter the value here and hit save, we're going to see that listed at the bottom under this trust area. So again, helpful information, but it's here. It's just a very welcoming area to go through the data with the clients. Beyond that, we also take the important data for the client's goals over time. So what you'll see is, step 4 of the data entry, the net worth is kind of what they first see. The clients see that balance sheet visualized. Then they can see this timeline of goals, which is really helpful. So we can see things like, the retirement expense goals. We can see, college goals that recur. But what a lot of you might notice is that when you first set these goals up, if you have goals that occur each and every year, for example, things like retirement monthly expenses, you're going to notice that they occur every single year in a timeline. And that might not be ideal for the report you're trying to generate. So there's a lot of flexibility to talk about how do you want to display these goals on this timeline. If I click edit, for example, I can choose to display things for just the first year only or for every year. So for example, if I want to look at the college goal that we have listed for all 4 years, maybe this client really just wants to see when college starts as kind of an identifier within their financial plan. I can very easily click edit. I can select that college goal. And what we're going to see on the right is the option to maybe just display that for the first year only. So as I select that, we're going to see, again, that college goal appear just on that first year, but we're going to see this little circle with the arrows to indicate that this is a recurring goal. And if I need more information on that, again, I just click into it, the drawer appears, and I can see all the data of start and stop ages and all the nuances of that goal. So this is very helpful, and just like we can do in the net worth, I can literally click add. I can build in any other goals we want to see. Maybe this client wants to do some extensive vacationing starting at their retirement age, maybe through the next 10 years of their life. And this is something that, again, maybe we can see as a goal occurring for maybe $10,000 a year that Bruce and Betty are going to want to, really get out and explore and travel more. And so we can set this up here and we see the ability to have that vacation goal, listed within those goals themselves. And again, I always have the option here to display every year or just, for the first year only. And this is also a great place to identify, oh, maybe I'm missing something here. If we click into it, we can then, see more information on that goal, add more details as needed, and it's all going to transfer the way we need it to. But these data points are very helpful for us. They help us to see the continuum of data over time, and they also help us to, again, edit the information that's there, what's important, what's not important. So these can be key life events. They can be, charitable giving scenarios. They can be purchasing a property or land, or providing a legacy at the end of the client's life. But this continuum, again, is a helpful place to look at that on an actual timeline versus just analyzing either the goals as data cards, or even less client friendly, but very helpful for you as the advisor, having to look into things like the cash flow reports to see all that data flowing over time. So we, be able to look at those cash flows, look at the current plan, and then, having to analyze those goals that occur at different times, like college goals or other goals that are being mapped out. So all of this, again, helps us to visualize the information in a way that's much more client friendly. But the last component here is pretty straightforward as well. It's the income, savings, and expenses. So this represents step 2, step 3, and step 5 of the initial data entry inputs, where we can see not only, client salary, so current income, future income like Social Security, future pension income, current savings, as well as, expenses that we see in pre-retirement. So when we're talking about the expenses, we're usually talking about, pre-retirement expenses. But if we wanted to include retirement expenses here, then, we could always, add in a specific data card if we wanted to illustrate that. But usually that's seen as a goal over that retirement timeline. But again, we can edit the information in the same way. We can, take a look at how all of this data can be, incorporated into a financial plan. But this just becomes a very easy view for the clients to, in one easy report or one screen, say, looks like we've got everything covered, or oops, maybe we forgot to add, those additional costs in our living expenses. Maybe we want to, provide that detailed worksheet versus just the simple estimate. But it's all here for us. Now, that is the blueprint, and it's a wonderful visual. It's easy to operate and it's easy to navigate. All of these features are going to be drag and drop, so we can reorder the data. As I mentioned previously, we click into any one to make edits or add individual features as needed. But this is all, essentially a representation of the current plan in those 6 initial steps of data entry. And what I want to do now is show how easy it can be to actually use this blueprint just to generate a financial plan itself, rather than walking through those 6 initial steps. So let's say you're working with, a new test client, and let's say that test client is somebody that maybe we are working with. Maybe this is Beth Jack here. So maybe we have Beth is our client, and we're inputting their information with the when they're in the office with us. Maybe we're not asking them to go through the data entry specifically. And what I can very easily do is just simply move beyond these 6 initial steps of data entry by clicking step 6, hitting complete, and then just actually sitting with the clients and talking through all the relevant data that's appropriate for them. So we can see, again, maybe it's just Jeff that we're working with, or maybe it's a Jeff and a co-client, but we can talk about, all the necessary inputs here that are helpful for us, like, what kind of bank accounts do they have? So we can just slowly start building this net worth in a very friendly view. So maybe we hit add bank account. Maybe this is a jointly owned bank account, so we'll notice it's going to flip over to the middle here. And maybe this is their emergency fund, where they have $25,000 of cash on hand, and that is included in the plan. And again, we can name it whatever we'd like. So this is an easy bank account, listed right in the middle, and we see their net worth growing right in front of us. We can also add in investment accounts here. So maybe we have, their joint taxable account listed here. So again, owner is joint. Maybe this is a, $350,000 taxable account with some cost basis that we can input for $250,000. And we can then just choose the investment strategy for that 350,000. So maybe in this case, this value is going to be based on a let's just call it, moderate 60-40 portfolio, which is going to be associated with a specific rate of return. And we again see the values growing. Maybe next we're adding the qualified assets. So maybe at this point we're dropping in a 401k, and this is co-client's 401k. And this is where we can again just start dropping in the important data points that are important for us, entering the value of said 401k. Maybe this is $230,000 currently, and we can say that's maybe invested in a asset allocation that's associated with more of a balanced portfolio. So again, we can just use this area to build out these details, everything from the homes, the investment accounts, to liabilities and mortgages and insurance policies, and it all just becomes a part of the data entry, a part of the living, breathing plan, and that we can then adjust for the future. So again, I'll just do one more here. Maybe this is Beth's 401k. So let's just say that this is again just entering holdings this time instead of that total balance. So this might let me enter a specific stock. So again, I can just enter some different inputs here. Maybe a certain number of shares for different types of accounts. Maybe he's got some GE stock, so I can just punch it in, see how it's all transferring through, and then again save the details in place. But what we're able to do is add the data, add the holdings. The investment strategy at this point is based on the holdings themselves, and I can then just talk about this as Beth's 401k. So again, I'll hit save here, and this will all be added into the plan, added to the net worth. And if I don't want to just add data, I can also again just click into data. Now, the one thing you're not going to be able to do here in this exact screen is let the client aggregate accounts. So that's where you do have to use that net worth to have them be able to link those accounts directly to the system. So again, that's just where they'd visit step 4 of the data entry or the profile net worth tab. So let's just drop in a home and then lastly a mortgage, and we'll be done with the inputs for the net worth, let's say. But this allows you to start the plan in a way that might be more in line with your specific workflow. Maybe you're itemizing the assets first, then working through what are the goals, and then just mapping out what do the cash flows look like for the future. So all of this just gives you a slightly different way for you to enter data, to be able to talk through the information for the clients. Let's say, again, here they have a mortgage, $200,000 that we had within a loan term of 15 years that, let's say, has a balance on it of $50,000. Where the client had a let's call it a 5% interest rate. So with this data in place, we'd be able to see all the data points of the original amount, the payment, the term, the balance. All that information helps us to map this information as we need to. So let's just call this shooting from the hip here, $1,500. So once this data is in place, again, we see the different, color values associated, and this is just an easy view. We can then just migrate over to what goals this client has. And this is where, again, we default to including goals for the clients: average healthcare costs, average retirement expenses, long-term care expenses. But here we can, edit this information as needed, and we can also, look to add information. So maybe in this case, we have goals to purchase a vacation property in the future. So maybe starting at retirement, for example, they want to purchase a new vacation home for $300,000, and they would like to, essentially have that occur at, let's say, the co-client's retirement. And they like to do that in Florida because many Connecticut residents like to, escape the high taxes here. So I can say that maybe they're going to put a 20% down payment. They'll have a 15-year term on a mortgage with maybe a 6% interest rate moving forward. And as I map that out, again, we'd be able to see that vacation goal enter into that timeline there. So it becomes very easy just to, again, map this out over the years. You can see, the increments, how they shift. And then lastly, you can talk about, well, what does it look like for you today in terms of income? how much do you save, how much are you spending, and what are your expectations for things like Social Security. So we're going to give you those default cards. You can just click into things like salary to say, Beth is currently making maybe $150,000 a year, starts today, ends at retirement. Maybe the co-client is making another 100,000 a year, starting today, ending at retirement. And this just becomes very easy to work with. Additionally, maybe they're saving into a 401k, but maybe they're saving into another option, maybe an IRA or a 457. We could set that up appropriately. We could easily remove this information if we needed to. So maybe again, Beth is saving into a 457 versus a 401k. I could very easily just add that in as needed for Beth, and we'd be able to see this information in place. So in this case, maybe a percentage of salary, we're contributing 5%. Maybe there's an employer contribution listed, which we see listed in these fields below, but I just hit save and it's all input here. Same for the client, maybe they're contributing another 5% of their salary income, and then maybe they have a joint savings of, let's say, $10,000 annually into those taxable accounts. But this is really going to provide us all that detail, and then maybe just what are they spending in their pre-retirement each month. And this is where we can say, on average, we're spending $6,000 a month. And in that way, we've literally just walked through the inputs that essentially have created a financial plan that can be reviewed as the client's current trajectory in life under the actual retirement tab by analyzing the analysis tool. So again, we can see that current plan, highlighted. We can see all those goals, like buying a vacation home, mapped out in those cash flows for the client. So as we look into the future, we see the goal occurring in calendar year 2037 of purchasing a property, which is specifically the vacation home property, and then maybe some ongoing mortgage expenses moving forward for that rental and vacation home that they decided to purchase. So all this detail, again, flows directly from the blueprint into the rest of the plan. And then here is where, of course, you can say, well, instead of that current plan, what can we do? Maybe the client wants to retire early. Can they get away with retiring at 62 instead of 67? And we can make that adjustment and see what kind of impact that has. And this then becomes your area to start playing with the data and seeing what trade-offs they'll have to see when they make adjustments to the inputs themselves. But the next piece here that's really important is just the reporting itself, because the blueprint is a great component of the data entry, but it's also a great report that you can generate for a quick client-friendly view. And so maybe, in this case, we want to just generate a quick output, but we want to customize the individual information that we see. So in this case, I'm going to set up, for example, a quick output with the client's snapshot report, which is a quick overview of all the data inputs that we have listed for the clients with maybe some notes, right on track here, we'll say. And then ultimately, I'll be able to create a really easy PDF report by generating the 3-dot report area, and just by clicking on what's important to me. So maybe that snapshot report that we saw, which is that 1-page summary of all the data. We also might want to see the blueprint, for example. But you'll notice every underlined column, under every underlined header here can be clicked into. So we had that recent update to retirement analysis, for example, where you can select more than just 2 plans. You can select 3, 4, 5 plans if you want to, but you can also click into the blueprint module to just target things like maybe the net worth and goals, and maybe leave off the income, savings, and expenses if needed. So as I generate that quick output here, what I'm able to do is see that report generate in RightCapital very easily. We can then download that, print it, email it, or store it within the shared folder for Beth Jack here. And then so I can just easily take this report, drop it right into the vault, add it, and then preview it for the clients. So this all becomes, again, a very easy system to kind of store information, to pull those reports from, and customize the data that we see. And all the different, changes that we make are going to transfer directly on to the actual, report in terms of the order of information, any notes that we see. And so we see the goals, we see, the net worth itself, but we don't see the income, savings, and expenses, for example. Now, as a reminder, maybe we want to see that blueprint come first in the report. So just as a quick bit of information here, we can always just drag and drop the order of these reports to say, maybe I'd like to see that blueprint come first or the snapshot come second. So we can, again, change the order in which the information is presented. We can download it, store it, and then see, that next report, show up with a different order. And in the same way that we do that within the actual PDF reports, we can also do that within the actual client portal as well, which is the last thing I just want to mention today, because there's a lot of customization that we can provide within the client portal, but there's also a lot of customization you can have when you're actually generating, presentations that you're displaying. So again, here the blueprint comes first, and then the goals come next, and then we move on to that snapshot report, for example. But maybe we have a client, let's just go back to, for example, Bruce and Betty. So here we have, Bruce and Betty, and maybe we want to set up their portal in a way that's going to show them first their, their blueprint module, then their snapshot report, and then maybe a quick stress test for retirement. So this is our area where we select the client in the advisor portal and customize their visual of RightCapital within this planning access tab. So here, maybe, as I mentioned, I would like to show them their snapshot report. I would like to show them their stress test, and I would like to show them their blueprint module. All of this information, including the vault, can be, organized and moved to different, orders by just dragging and dropping the information. So maybe I first want them to see the blueprint, then the snapshot report, then the retirement stress test. And again, we just go in order from top to bottom in terms of, what we're going to see in the software. And as I save this in place, I can now see exactly what this client is going to see when they log into their system under their client portal by visiting Open within Client Access mode. And this is a mode that I can present off of as the advisor, but it's also the exact visual that the individual client will see when they log in. So, this provides, all that data in one place that we wanted to show them on their net worth. It provides, the goals over time, the income, savings, and expenses that we've outlined, but it also provides that one-page overview within that dashboard snapshot module, as well as, the retirement analysis that we wanted to be able to show them with that stress test feature, where they can see maybe what's the impact of taxes being higher or inflation, being higher, because maybe they're concerned about, inflation increasing over time. And so again, we can talk about that. We can let them know that they'll, if that were to occur, we would see, a change in their probability of success. And that would be something they'd want to be mindful of. So this is all, helpful for us to be able to navigate these different conversations that we're having with clients and really customize their experience within the portal itself. So that was a fair amount of detail, I know, but we just really are continually working on this snapshot tool as well. So if you have any experiences with it that you personally want to, maybe provide feedback for or see more data on, we're happy to, take that. But these are really great tools that allow us to kind of connect the dots between those raw data inputs, those data cards, with actually these visuals that really help the clients to see things all in one place over a continuum or within one area that just sums up the data in a way that they can really connect with and understand, and more importantly, see if anything is missing potentially. So we're going to dive into questions now, everyone. So, ultimately, if you have them, don't forget to ask them within the GoToWebinar control panel. And, there is one that just came up here that's really great. Can we edit the list of goals? Yep, we sure can. So again, click edit. You can toggle on and off what you want to see, what you don't want to see for the blueprint. So all that's very, flexible. Another thing that's important here is there a way to differentiate between joint trusts and individual owned trusts? And so that's another really great question. So here, for example, we have, this trust owned account. Now this trust owned account is ultimately going to be an outside entity. So this is not associated with Bruce, nor is it associated with Betty. If it was a grantor trust, for example, that had an association with either Bruce or Betty, it's not going to transfer directly into one side or the other. But just be mindful that in this case we're just going to list all the trusts, as we do see them as technically in most cases being outside of the estate for the clients. So we will see those there. Now, insurance policies, if they're owned by an irrevocable life insurance trust, for a whole life policy, for example, that might be a little different, but that's something, again, you'll want to be able to play with and get a feel for the layout, but you can always drag and drop within the owners. Perfect. Lovely. So another great question here is how some good feedback here. How awesome would it be to have RightCapital automatically email the snapshot or blueprint to clients monthly? Yes, that's a great point. So maybe having an automated report. Now, we can certainly set up automated tasks for clients to come check out the information that's in their client portal. Those tasks and those task templates are easy to set up over timelines, but happy to pass along that feedback for you. Perfect. So another question is, how can the clients add their own information to Blueprint? And that's a really good question, because under the actual advisor portal, you have the ability to control how the clients interact with that tool. So for Bruce and Betty, for example, if I were to invite them by entering their email here, let's say it's bruce@testemail.com, I would be able to use this feature here that says how your clients interact with profile items to be able to determine whether or not they can actually see and play with that data. So let's say you wanted the client to just input their data from that blueprint module. You could very easily, have the blueprint, for example, and let's say the vault and maybe some tasks that they want to see as the only things that are visible for that client. And then under the actual client access piece, you could just say that the clients can update their profile information. Invite them, and then when that client logs in, they'll literally be looking at the blueprint where they can adjust all the information here. They can visit the dashboard tasks tool that maybe has all your tasks that you've assigned to them, linking accounts, uploading grant documents, uploading pay stubs or previous year's tax returns, or scheduling appointments with them. All of that can be a living, breathing part of this. But certainly, you have the ability to tell the system, can the clients actually click into this information, change it, add information or not? So that's an important component here. But that is a great way to maybe just give the clients another view of the data entry, as opposed to what we'd normally see when we're inviting clients, which would be the 6 initial steps of data entry that we see right here. Perfect. So another good question here, is the blueprint more of a quick snapshot financial plan for clients to see visually? So might be a little bit of interesting wording here. So we can think of the blueprint as an aggregated version of the data entry, meaning we're taking all the data entry information and we're showing that within a really clear picture. So instead of looking at the data entry as a 6-step continuum of who's in the household, what do they make, save, spend, and what are their goals, we can analyze and input this data in a view that consolidates that information into a one page kind of colored view that gives us some nice visuals that the clients can connect with. But the snapshot report itself is almost the same thing for the actual financial plan. And that's our topic for next week, the snapshot module. So feel free to join us for that if you want to see how to customize and really get the best use out of that. So this is a great one. Are you finding that using the blueprint to build things is more efficient than the initial fact finder? It doesn't look like they can aggregate accounts from the blueprint area, correct? That is correct. So what we actually find is that the initial fact finder is still the primary way people are entering data, but the way that people are reviewing that data, maybe on that first appointment after the fact finder has been input with the clients, is this provides a much easier place to see everything all in one location, and clients can easily recognize here if they maybe missed something or if something is double counted somewhere. So this becomes, a great location to review the data with the clients, whereas most people are still, using the 6 steps to actually enter the data itself. But it's really up to you and the client in preference. Great. Wonderful. So this is nice here. It would be great to have the blueprint also show in print years that some things are happening. For example, if they are doing charitable giving every year between now and 23, it might be nice to have that listed all the way out. So that's definitely something, there is some control over that, but I do agree, you can use these tools to kind of map out different, key life events, for example. But we have some other data that might be great to incorporate here. Things like, when the client is, approaching Medicare filing age, or or Social Security filing age. And those kind of key life events might also be a great thing to incorporate into this blueprint. So I'll happily pass that along. Perfect. And what we do see as well is there was an initial, question here that if the client has passed away, can we input a hyphen to show that instead of the client's age? We did make that adjustment, Michelle. So just be aware if you have a client that is, passing away within the near future, we did actually make that update already, but we appreciate you giving that to us. So just as a reminder, if I were to drop this to 70, for example, and head back to that blueprint, in the goals, we might see that, in some of these areas, we'd actually see that hyphen occur. And in this case, something popped up where it didn't, but that is something I know they are working on right now for you. Perfect. So is there an option to send the report directly to the client vault? And there is not currently an option just to directly send that report, but it is good to note, you can download it, you can just drag and drop it right in, but I'm happy to pass that along as feedback. Perfect. Is there a way to identify assets in the blueprint as linked so we know they are not manual? There is. And so what you're gonna see is, the headings will be slightly different, but I can also see it might be nice to have a little code next to it that might be highlights that as maybe a little link feature, but definitely a good thing to bring up. You'll notice that for any linked accounts, the data is gonna be grayed out and locked in place. So you won't have the option to change any linked data if it's coming in from an integration or an aggregation. So just worth mentioning there. Great. So another great question. Besides just combining the 2 modules in a report, is there any functionality that would allow the blueprint and the snapshot to interact? So what we do in the blueprint is going to affect everything in the snapshot. The blueprint we can think about as the raw inputs for the plan. This is the core data that's creating all the analyses. So by changing the ages, by adjusting the information, we're going to see that actually impacting the outputs as well. So just be mindful of that. But if there's more information you'd like to see interacting there, you can always give us the feedback. We'll happily pass it along to the team. Great. Can we show other family relationships? There are other relatives that we can add into the household, but really the blueprint is going to be focused on the client and co-client. We see here under family that maybe Bruce and Betty have children. Maybe they have other family members that we're adding in. We can, name this, dependent, family member. If I could spell today, that'd be great. But here we could enter that data. But RightCapital is primarily concerned with the client and co-client, which is why in the blueprint we're really just focusing on their lifetime and not adding in the other members of the household. But again, if there's other things you want to see, we'd love to hear from you about it. So a great question about how long on average does it take to do this with a client? Could it be used as a loss leader to draw a client in? Absolutely. this can be a very simple process, right? It can be as simple as, a 15 to 20-minute walkthrough of, what are the data inputs, and then a quick click on the retirement tab to see, are we going to be okay? And ultimately, there's a fair amount of nuance to the inputs themselves. We can be more detailed, we can be less detailed, we can enter specific holdings or for investment accounts, for example, or we can just lock in a model portfolio that best illustrates what we're trying to see. But in the long run, if we're trying to just generate a quick prospect plan, this is a really efficient way just to enter who's in the household, what do they make, what do they save, what are they spending, and what does their net worth look like today. And with that data, it's a really quick output for, can they fund their goals? Are they going to run out of money? And if they do, at what point are we, risking some income shortfalls? So, quick inputs here, pivoting quickly to the retirement tab, giving an idea of, what things might look like, or, what the income picture looks like, and how that might be, stressed by different scenarios, and where we might see shortfalls can be really helpful to be able to just have that conversation piece for the clients and the prospects, of course. Wonderful. So back here, so great. So some great feedback here. One was, is it possible to have the vault appear on the main menu, along the dashboard tab, instead of being hidden in the three dots there? Great feedback. I'm happy to provide that to the team. And is it possible to rename, the expense categories and reorder them? And it is. So there is going to be the ability to, customize, those expense categories you see in the gear icon settings under budget categories. This is where you can actually, edit this information, add in your own, but it's not going to be as customizable with the existing categories, but you can enter up to 50 additional of your own, which is helpful here. So you can see, if you're adding categories, you can, build them in, name them, whatever you like, and this will transfer over to what we see in the actual detailed estimate. But happy to ask for a little more there as well. Great. Yeah, so this is a good one. Do you have a fact finder that I can fill out with my clients if I'm not online with them? And we certainly do here, everyone. The actual fact finder is found with lots of the other resources that we have available to you in our help center. So on the upper right corner of RightCapital software, in the advisor portal, that is, you'll find this help icon. You'll be able to visit that if you just simply type in, data collection, fact finder, whatever you want. You're going to find that you'll see there's a template for you to use. And so this is going to be, something that you can just click on, you can download, you can customize, you can brand it, but it's going to follow those 6 initial steps of data entry to the T of, who's in the household, what do they make, save, spend, and that can be used to, gather data as well. Great. If a client has passed, the cash flows include that hyphen. Thank you. The blueprint does not. I will certainly pass that along. Great point there. Wonderful. So the insurance beneficiary split, or the benefit split, basically is 100% the only option on Blueprint. So that is something that's an important part of the conversation that we can have, is if you have an insurance policy that's paying out, to different individuals, the Blueprint is just going to basically list the insurance policy under who owns it, right? And we will list the actual benefit amount here, not the cash value, for example. So I just like to highlight that, since that's an important note. If we have, let's say, the actual insurance policy, whole life, that has cash value here, let's say there's 100,000 of cash value, but the death benefit is $1 million, we're going to actually list the death benefit here for the client, and it's going to say benefit next to it, just as to make sure there's no confusion. But you'll really just want to list the benefit that's associated with that client. You can always split the benefit to the other clients by just entering another policy without any premiums, and just show the portion that's going to feed to them. But worth just mentioning that that is only the benefit you're going to see. The cash value will add to the net worth, but you'll have to click into it to see it. Perfect. So this is a great one. Is there a possibility to create a firm template for repeatable expenses? There is. You can do that at a global level if you need to. So you can find that in the advisor portal. Um, and another thing that's important here is, can we do expense category reclassification if you're maybe using the budgeting tool? You can. So just as a reminder, again, the Help Center has a lot of great resources on this. If you click the help icon in the advisor portal, if you type in, for example, budgeting or expenses, you're going to see a fair amount of information on adjusting budgeting categories, on viewing or adjusting transactions that are fed in, so you can really adjust the information as needed. You can add in manual transactions, and there's a fair amount you can do here, as well as, of course, customizing your own categories as well, to be able to build in any that you're looking for. So again, fair amount of detail here. If anyone wants to replay this webinar and watch it in the future, just simply visit our webinars area of RightCapital. You can visit the previously recorded webinars area, and you're going to see this blueprint module webinar updated under this previously recorded webinars area within the next few hours. So you'll be able to catch a replay as needed. But again, we always thank all of you for your time. It's always great to be able to, talk through this information with you, gather some great feedback from all of you, but know that, if you need to catch a replay, it's here. If you have questions beyond the webinar today, you can always reach out to our support team Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 p.m. Eastern. We are closed for the Martin Luther King Day holiday on Monday, so just want to remind all of you of that. But we, are welcome. You're welcome to send us a message. While we're out, we'll get back to you as soon as we come back to the office on Tuesday. But we're here for the next few hours, so use us if you need us. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday weekend and enjoy the weather out there. We will see you next week for another webinar focused on the snapshot module. Have a great rest of your day.